Hey, welcome in.
Welcome to the Arrowhead Addict podcast.
We are here coming to you live.
The Kansas City Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl. You only win a Super Bowl 2 times every 5 years, right? Oh! The warm-up act is over. Let's bring in Melissa Etheridge, massive Chiefs fan. Melissa,
Super Bowl champion, 2-time Pro Bowler, and Trent Green. Trent Green, how you doing?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
And he picked it up! He picked it up! He's gonna score!
and we'll see you next week. But until then, as always, go Chiefs. Welcome in and raise a glass. It is a victory party. The Kansas City Chiefs, and one of the more hilarious victories in AFC West history, defeat the Denver Broncos 16-14 on a blocked 35-yard field goal. I got to tell you, everybody, I know we all went through it in that game. It was brutal. The Chiefs were frustrating. The Broncos did some nice things. Mahomes missed some plays. We're going to talk about all of it. It was really annoying, especially annoying because you all knew we were about to lose our undefeated season to the friggin' Denver Broncos. And you would have rather lost last week to the Bucs in overtime. That would have been fine rather than not lose to the Broncos. But instead, it was all worth it. It was all worth it, Price Carter, because the Kansas City Chiefs beat the Broncos. Look, it's always fun to beat your rivals, right? But there's nothing more fun and hilarious than beating them in the most gut-wrenching fashion possible when everybody hates you and everybody wants you to lose. And that's what the Kansas City Chiefs just did. How did you react when that thing got blocked?
I mean, we, basically sit here waiting next to our computers to start postgame. And I mean, I was sitting in my chair. I've got my computer here and I can see my TV here. And I was basically just, waiting to like sign in and get going here. And I heard Kevin Harlan just going like Kevin Harlan does, the GOAT. And I was like, this can't be over the kick that was made, was it? And I look, and Jaden Hicks is like scooping up the ball. And I was like, was it blocked? And I just started laughing. I just started laughing because it's just, if you're the Broncos, you have that game won. You're trying to pick where you want to kick it from. And they played it perfectly up until the last play. Special teams, special plays, special players. And there's a lot of teams out there that would have just went out there for a field goal block and just hung their heads and already think that they had lost the game. But they didn't do that, right? They went out there and they tried to make a play. And field goal blocks have been up this year. There's some different strategies that teams are using that are really working with there. We've seen that in a couple of primetime games. Shout out. I'm not sure who ended up getting, if it was Leo Chanel. I think that's who it was. But the Chiefs did not give up. They never gave up in that game. And I also thought it was great. Honestly, one of the things we could have pointed to if we were talking about a Chiefs loss here was the special teams muffing, or whatever you want to call that missed kick was for the kickoff. They usually just boom it through the back of the end zone. And for whatever reason, they tried to pin them back there and they missed the landing zone, and they hand the Broncos offense the ball on the 40-yard line. They basically have to get two or three first downs to be in field goal range there. And that really gave them the advantage of the clock. And they ended up saving the day. And you know what? Here's the thing. A lot of people are going to talk about how they got bailed out in this game. If you go read one of my favorite football books I've read called Gridiron Genius by Michael Lombardi, a former NFL GM, his influences are Bill Parcells and Bill Belichick. And one of the biggest things that those guys put an emphasis on is special teams. How many Super Bowls have the Chiefs won where special teams made an impact? Almost all of them, right? Yeah. And guess what? That play counts too. If you wouldn't take anything away from a team winning a touchdown on a Hail Mary or a big pick six to end the game, the Chiefs made a big play at the end of the game, and they're winners, and that's why they're undefeated.
You're right about special teams. And I was thinking to myself, I was about to – my office is on the other side of the house from the TV, so I have to stay until the very end of the game just so I know, and then I have to traipse over here and get set up. So I was still out there, and I thought about doing what you did and just being like, I don't need to watch this. I'll go and get in front of the computer. But I stopped just at the last second because I was like, this is a certain situation. And if the Chiefs have a block, this is the situation like that they feel good about. This is the situation where they're going to call it. So I should stay put just in case. And shout out to Dave Tobe. he had something in his back pocket. He waited for the right time to deploy it, and he did. And you're right, man. Like, look, winners win and losers lose. And the Kansas City Chiefs this year, more than any other year, have been winners. They find a way to win. They don't panic. They don't do everything perfect. And look, I'm pretty sure they're gonna lose a game. But it's a long NFL season. Division games are always tough. We know that. Sean Payton's a very good coach. He's a smart offensive coach. And that's listen, that's one of the best defenses, if not the best defense the Chiefs are going to see all season long. The Denver Broncos defense is elite. They're very, very good. They shut people down. So that was a tough challenge for the Chiefs, who are banged up and who can't block. And again, we're going to get all into that. But I think just, a few more minutes basking in the glory of the shot of the Broncos on the sideline, all watching, and they're all smiling because they think they're about to upset the Chiefs at Arrowhead. And then the look on their faces throws me back to the Bengals game when they were all doing the same thing. And then you see the looks on their faces change when the penalty comes out. Absolutely unbelievable.
One of my favorite things that happens is whenever players but it's kind of fun whenever a player gets hurt and then they get to kind of tweet along with games like fans, Chiefs players, that is. Jalen Watson tweeted out almost the same thing you said. He said they was ready to celebrate like they won the Super Bowl with the laughing emoji. It ain't ever over with the Chiefs kingdom, boy. And yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. And like almost the other side of the coin, I thought the Chiefs looked like they had just won the Super Bowl. Like Mahomes wins his second Super Bowl in a row, and like he runs around for a little bit, and then like standing up, I want another, I want a three-peat, and they could not believe it. And I think everyone thought that game was over, and that's why, again, just credit to them for being aggressive at trying to block that kick. They didn't think the game was over, and they played through. And like I said, a lot of teams could have just mailed in that final play. Undefeated teams die hard. That's always true. And they fought to the last play, and they come out victorious. There's a lot of things we'll get into here about why they were in the position that they were, but they made the play at the end.
One of my favorite gifts is when I was growing up, I was a big Hulk Hogan fan, big WWF fan. And one of my favorite gifts to use in situations is the Undertaker gif, where the guy's like looking through the ropes and into the coffin, and he reaches up and grabs him by the throat. Yeah. That is exactly what happened at the end of this game. The Chiefs were the Undertaker. They thought they had him dead and buried. The Broncos dared to peer over and take a glimpse of the casket before they slammed it shut, much to their chagrin. Just absolutely hilarious. Like I'm going to be in such a good mood for I had kind of a rough day. My dog went to the groomer today, and the groomers cut her really bad, and they had to rush her to the emergency vet for stitches. And like, we were really upsetting. We got the baby here.
The dog stuff, man, I can't do it. After I don't know if you follow college football, but Ben or Kirk the dog stuff it's had a rough weekend. Okay, Kirk Herbstreit's dog dying has hit us all hard.
Yeah, you're not kidding, man. And I've been feeling it because I'm still really broken up about losing my dog Zelda, a couple months ago, and I've been thinking about her a lot. And then the Herbstreit stuff happened, and then we get this call from the groomer about my dog, and I'm just like, I've got the baby, and I got to watch the game for work. And my wife rushes to the veterinary hospital, and she's okay, and she's fine, and they they glued it shut or whatever. So I was in a bad, I was like not feeling good, and then the Chiefs are playing the way they were playing, and now everything is restored. The world is on its even keel again. Let's get to some super chats to celebrate. Slothy, in his tradition, donates $32.28. Never a doubt. There was a doubt. I was in the Discord with y'all. I definitely was doubting. We won on the last place, so double prize today. Let's friggin' go. How about Slothy doubling it up? Really appreciate him. If you guys don't know, Slothy donates the score of the game, so he doubled it up, $32.28. Green says, what was Pat doing out there today? He missed wide open receivers regardless of the left tackle injury. He has to be better. We're going to get to that, Green. We'll talk about it more in detail when we're past the celebration phase. But yes, if they had lost this game, there were a lot of reasons why, but chief among them would have been Patrick Mahomes did not play his best, and he missed 2 touchdown passes. One of them was one of the easier touchdown passes he was ever going to have to Travis Kelce in the back of the end zone. That's the way it goes. Sometimes you miss the easy one and you make the hard one. And that's just, again, like Price said, when you're a winning team, that's what you do. Evan, who has been a member for 34 months in our Ring of Honor, one of our good friends, says Arrowhead to the refs for blocking the kick. Yes, we're going to have to help out the refs with an arrowhead when we do earning their arrowheads later today. Yeah, listen, man, I want to kind of frame how big of a win this was for the Chiefs. If they had lost it, would have been a disaster. No, they're not in danger of the Broncos catching them in the division or anything like that. But they have a game next week against the Buffalo Bills. It's a huge game. It's going to be a really big challenge. They're going on the road to Buffalo. Buffalo, when I sat down, was winning. They have now won. They beat the Colts 30-20. They're 8-2. The Chiefs are 9-0. If the Chiefs had lost this game, that game next week would have been for the number 1 seed in the AFC playoffs. The Bills had won. They would have taken the number 1 seed. Now, even if the Chiefs lose that game, they still have a game of buffer. They would lose the tiebreaker. So it's a big game for the Chiefs, and hopefully it puts the fear of God in them as they head into Buffalo. But it was, if we're sitting here and they lose to the Bills next week, which is possible, we're going to be really glad about that block kick. We're going to think a lot more highly of it than we do already right now. Man, I want to ask you a question, Price. At the end of the game, when the Broncos were driving down, it was clear that if they got into the first down, the Chiefs weren't going to be able to stop the clock. I said in a text thread with some other Chiefs fans, it was on the third down play that to Sutton, where McDuffie made the tackle from behind. I said, if the Chiefs, they should be telling the defenders, if the Broncos get the ball past the sticks, let them score. I really believe that that's what they should have done on that play. I think if McDuffie misses that tackle, I don't think maybe Sutton goes down at the 1 yard line, but I think he probably would have went in the end zone. And then you get the ball back to Patrick Mahomes. Do you think the Chiefs should have told their defenders that? And then even later in the drive, they were tackling them. They were trying to keep them as far away from the goalpost as possible. I was screaming, at least try to let them score, even if they're smart enough to get down. What's your take on all that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it would have hurt anything to let them score. I guess I shouldn't say that, to try to let them score. Because if they do score, you got to go down and get 7. That would have made it a 21-16 game. And if they do slide down at the 1 yard line, it's basically the same thing. I guess the only argument against that would be that was a tougher kick that they were going to make. It wasn't a super hard kick. You said a 35 kick. But, I mean, the stranger things have happened. Versus, lining it up at the 1 or 2 or whatever they would have slid down, made that easier. So, and who knows? I'm not going to pretend to know a ton about NFL field goal block units. Maybe it was easier for them to be able to do what they did, not being backed up in the end zone. Not entirely sure. But I think that, there's been a couple of times that the Chiefs have opted to not let the team score. And to be quite frank, with the pass rush winning, the Broncos pass rush winning like it had throughout the game, I don't know if I feel great about the Chiefs being able to go down and score a touchdown there. They had struggled most of the game blocking up the pass rush, and those, have to have it passing situations without any timeouts would have been tricky for them to be able to go down and get a touchdown. But, we've seen games play out like that before.
It's the Arrowhead Addict podcast. Patrick Allen, Price Carter here with you, breaking down all of the action. If you're watching on YouTube, do us a favor, hit that like button. Let's celebrate with all the Chiefs fans out there looking for post-game coverage. If you like this video, it'll help them find it. And if you're not subscribed, make sure you're subscribed, because we've got a ton of content almost every day of the week here and a lot of stuff on game day. Shout out to Wiley Possum for the super chat. Any way possible. 9-0 takes all 3 phases to win championships. Any way possible. Gotta love the punnage there. Yeah, I mean, this is what it's about, and the Chiefs have some things to clean up, and I think we can start talking about that now. But again, it's just enjoy the fact that the Chiefs stole one from a division rival. And I think this is just real quick. I think. Do you have a favorite Chiefs snatch victory from the jaws of defeat, against a division opponent? To me, this is my favorite Chiefs moment like that, since they were playing the Chargers that one year on Halloween, and the Chargers just needed to kneel the ball to run out the clock, and the game was going to be over and kick a field goal, and then the Chiefs They fumbled it, and the Chiefs took it away from them.
That was like this level of incompetence, right? Fumbling a kneel down is probably the funniest way to possibly lose a game, but this is right up there, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely agree. Nothing else really comes to mind. I know that there's been some pretty good ones before. The Chargers losing in overtime or in the fourth, like on the final seconds of a game, to Travis Kelce, like mesh concept twice in Los Angeles in primetime kind of hits. Like they were like the same plays. Like those are kind of humorous. Or after the Raiders did the ring around the rosy with the around Arrowhead when they beat the Chiefs in Arrowhead, later that game or that year, they played a pretty tight game in Las Vegas, and Travis Kelce scores the game-winning touchdown. And he is so open that in the photo frames of the picture taken, there's not even a Raiders player in the photo. And it's like, he's this open. Travis Kelce is this open. And that's how the Chiefs walked off that game. So there's definitely been some hilarity surrounding it. And yeah, I think obviously a loss probably would have woken the team up a little bit more, but this had trap game written all over it. You got the first noon start of the year. They go into overtime on Monday Night Football in a big physical game, Mahomes gimpy ankle, and then you have a classic look ahead situation as well. These are professionals. I don't buy into a ton of that as much as I do in college football where you're dealing with young kids, but all the elements were there for a Chiefs loss, and they pulled it out of the fire. So this is huge. It, basically puts the AFC West to bed. And good news is the Broncos, they pushed you here in this game. And there's very much a scenario where they don't have to play their starters against the Broncos the last week of the season.
Unless they haven't lost, in which case they'll have a decision to make. Yeah. And I think, again, I know, some Chiefs fans would be down a little bit on this performance. And they probably look at the Broncos and see a team that hasn't really played a tough schedule and they're not very good. Look, they've got limited offensive weapons, a rookie quarterback, all of those things. But I can't stress enough how important it is when you have an elite defense like the Broncos have, how it keeps you in football games in the NFL. It just does. And then when you combine their elite defense with the way the Chiefs are playing these days, where it's not a lot of explosion, they're eating up the clock, limiting their own possessions in a way, and then not scoring touchdowns. When these Chiefs don't score touchdowns in the red zone and they're playing a team like this, it's kind of a perfect recipe for potential trouble. And that's what the Chiefs almost ran into. They still dominated the time of possession, 33 minutes to 26, but they didn't put up 6 when they needed to. So lots to clean up. Let's get into some of the reasons that kept the Chiefs from winning this game more than by more than 2 points at a blocked field goal as time expired. I thought that they kind of got away. Now, it's weird because when you look at the box score, they ran the ball 19 times. But for a team that had their starting left tackle out for most of the game, the Chiefs threw the ball 42 times in this one. I felt like the runs up the middle with Kareem Hunt weren't working. He only averaged 2.5 yards per carry. I was complimenting Andy Reid earlier in the season for not going away from that when it didn't work at first. They kind of did that. And this one, I felt like that hurt them a little bit. Maybe they just didn't figure they could eventually overpower the Broncos line. But what was your take on this? Do you think they should have run the ball a little bit more in this one?
I think that the Broncos were in a unique position to challenge the Chiefs' running heavy offense at this point. First off, you've got Riley Moss and Patrick Surtain, who are probably one of the best cornerback duos in the NFL right now. They are able to put those guys on DeAndre Hopkins, on Kelce, on Xavier Worthy, or whoever else is running outside, and you feel like they can win man on man. You've got Zach Allen, who's one of the best interior defensive linemen in the NFL, up there as far as efficiency with Chris Jones. They've got some other guys on the interior as well, and they've got some pretty fast, mini edge rushers. So I thought that this, knowing the type of coach that Sean Payton is, this could be the performance that the Broncos really challenged the Chiefs to move the ball without running it. Because we saw even in that Bucs game, they really struggled to run the ball in the first half. I talked about on the halftime show that V was really kind of dominating in the trenches, and that's why the Chiefs weren't running the ball. But they went back to the well in the second half and were able to start breaking off bigger chunks. We've always talked about with the Chiefs defense, which for the most of the Patrick Mahomes era has sucked at defending the run. You don't have to be great at defending the run. You just got to be okay. And you got to stop them enough. and that's when they'll start leaving it. And I felt that's kind of like how the Chiefs rush offense was today. They had some, plays that were decent, but they mostly got stuffed. And at some point they had to leave that and start passing the ball. And yes, it was surprising to see how often they were passing the ball, considering the amount of pressure that they were having and the lack of success that they were having with it. I definitely think that, these are the type of games that it would help to have another back that you really trust, like Pacheco, someone else who just has another explosive element. I thought probably like one of the biggest developments in this game, something that ultimately helped them end up securing a victory, was Patrick Mahomes throwing to the running backs. Yep. They were not winning down the field. DeAndre Hopkins, he had his moments. Travis Kelce was definitely like a huge factor in this game, but wide receivers were just not winning in this game. And throwing to Hunt, throwing to P. Ryan, they had some really big plays with those guys. So that was huge. But yeah, I mean, this Broncos defense, they bring a lot of pass rush. They have a lot of guys up front, and they've got some stud corners. That really helps things. They're weaker on the linebacker side, and we saw them take advantage of that with Kelce. But yeah, this was a unique challenge.
Yeah, and you're right. They did get the ball in Hunt's hands. He had 14 carries for 35 yards, but he had 7 receptions for 65 yards on 10 targets. That was a big part of this game plan. I feel like Mahomes held the ball a little bit too long sometimes when he did go to the screen and dump it off. I think he could make that move a little bit quicker. But look, at the end of the day, they were moving the football. Again, like we talked about this early in the season when they were struggling in the red zone. Sterling was busting my chops after game. And I said, I can't remember which one it was, but I said, this game was close, but it really shouldn't have been that close if the Chiefs would have just executed in the red zone. They were moving the football, but they stalled out in the red zone. And Sterling was like, you can't, what if. And then the Chiefs started, they started scoring in the red zone, and it really changed things for them. They were 1 for 4 in this one. So that's going to kill you, and then you've got Mahomes. Look, the second reason they struggled was it wasn't the best day from Patrick. One, I have sympathy for. He's struggling with pressure. We know the only thing that could stop Patrick Mahomes is blocking. And so he had to deal with that. So I'm sympathetic to him. But that play, like that pass to Xavier Worthy, that was one of the worst throws I've seen him make. He was 5 yards out of bounds. He was wide open. Like you just can't. You got to give him a chance. You got to put it in the field of play.
Yeah, and I mean, we broke down Xavier Worthy quite a lot on the intangibles this week, and we talked about there's a lot of things here, but also there's probably at least 100 or more yards out left on the field for Xavier Worthy with just missed Patrick Mahomes shots. And you don't expect him to go 10 for 10 perfect on those, but at least expect like closer to 5 for 10. And it feels like they're like 0 for 10 with those deep shots to Worthy. I guess they did have the one against the Chargers, but it does have to get better. And I'm not sure what it is. If it's he's just feeling ghost as far as the pass rush goes. Obviously, that was a huge factor in this game, and it was a factor in some of the other games they played early in the season. But for the most part, the Chiefs' offensive line has at least been good enough for them to get those passes off. They've got to get it better, because it's basically mitigating the one spot that you've drafted Xavier Worthy for, and that's winning down the field. And you go back to what was the narrative around this team all camp. It's that, we're going to throw the ball deep. We're stretching the field with Hollywood Brown, with Xavier Worthy. So it's not like this was some new thing that they've just kind of decided they're going to start doing. This has been a huge factor for the offense all season. And I thought in this game particularly, you really saw how limited this offense was explosiveness without factoring in Worthy. And I'll be interested to look at the snap counts. I feel like he was out there less than he has been too. I don't know if that was just a game plan thing, but I'm seeing more and more McCole Hardman. I don't know, but they've got it. Like last week, Worthy did not help Mahomes. This week, Mahomes did not help Worthy in those situations. Because that's a walk-in for him.
Yeah, it certainly is. And I honestly wonder if they're so rare nowadays that it's just like he's not in any kind of good rhythm, And so it's amplified. Like when they get the rare deep shot and a guy's open, if Mahomes misses it, it feels a lot worse than it did, back in 2018 when they were getting shots like that all the time. And if they missed one, you were like, oh, okay, fine. Like we'll get one in like 8 plays. It's a much more, it's a rare play for them right now, and they're going to need it because teams are not going to respect Worthy. they're respecting his speed a little bit, but like right now, the Chiefs and Worthy have not been able to put it together to make teams really, really scared and terrified of what he can do to them with his speed. And until the Chiefs can show that, he is going to have some opportunities. So maybe, hopefully he figures it out in the playoffs when teams are still disrespecting him and they get that connection going. Yeah, it's weird. I mean, we got to talk about the tackle situation, man. It's rough. All through the trade deadline was wondering, why am I not hearing buzz about the Chiefs trying to get a tackle? And maybe it just wasn't there for them and they couldn't. But seeing Kingsley Suamataia, he's like, Wanya Morris is not good. Like he's not good. He is far below average right now as an NFL left tackle with his pass blocking in particular. And Kingsley Suamataia, in the short window that we saw him before today, was even worse, far worse. And now you see him today, and it really it shakes my confidence a little bit in the evaluation process. Like, what were these guys seeing, one, when they drafted him? And I'm not saying he can't develop, but what were they seeing in camp where they were like, okay, we've had Wanye and Kingsley in camp all summer. Kingsley's good enough to start for us this year. He's far better than Wanye because he's not. And they are in a bad way right now. I don't know what Donovan Smith is doing. I don't know if he's dead. I joked on Twitter, throw his corpse out there, and at least maybe somebody will trip over him. But unless he's like retired or completely shot medically, how are you not on the phone with him? Because there's not. Who else are you going to call? The Ghostbusters? Like this will keep them from three-peating if they can't figure it out.
Yeah. So going back to the original question of like, what were they seeing? I think when you were talking about Suamataia, you were probably thinking him and Wanye were probably close to the same level of player, and you were betting on the higher traits with Suamataia, the athleticism. And it has seemingly got worse, not better. He looks slow out of his kick step. He looks like he's just constantly not getting deep enough in his drop. And there were some communication errors there too, which is to be expected for a guy who hasn't been in the starting lineup for quite some time. I don't think that you drafted Suamataia expecting Wanye Morris to take the lion's share of the left tackle snaps. With Wanye Morris, I feel that this is a good pass rush. This was the second leading sack team in the NFL. This is a good pass rush. So it's not surprising that they struggled, but they clearly struggled with this. And Wanye Morris, I feel like they can win a Super Bowl with at left tackle. What troubles me is that Wanye Morris, this is like the third time that he's left injured. It sucks for him that that's the case, but I don't know if they can rely on him health-wise. And I think we've clearly seen that Kingsley Suamataia cannot be relied upon as a player right now. You go back to the drawing board next year with Suamataia, see if there's more that you can do with him. He was a raw guy coming out. You like the traits, but the BYU offense is a ton of RPOs and run game. That was not really translatable to what they want to do. And also keep in mind, he played right tackle last year. He played left tackle the year before. But yeah, I think that there's a lot of questions there. I will say former Chief Jeff Allen on Twitter during this game tweeted at Donovan Smith and said, "Is Donovan Smith available?" Donovan Smith responds on Twitter, his official Twitter account, with a shrugging emoji that kind of looks like, well, I don't know. My guess is this is probably more than just like, I think for the right price, Donovan Smith might come out. But the Chiefs, they've been pretty strapped with cash. I don't know what more they need to see that this is an issue, but I feel like, Thanksgiving's just around the corner. That's when real football is played. If they were going to make that move, the answer's got to be sooner than later, because right now the Chiefs offense is being neutered not only by their ability to protect Patrick Mahomes, but also what they have to do in protections. There was a key third down in this game where you've got a 3-man route, 3 men out running a route because of the extra protection they have to keep in. That's just less guys that can be out there to catch a pass, to win, to find a hole in the zone. So it was definitely a big factor in this game, and teams are going to see that. The teams that they're going to see in the playoffs are going to do those type of things too. So it's something it's a question they got to answer.
Yeah, it certainly is. And I would get Donovan Smith on a plane right now for a workout It's free money, Donovan. Like, just take what whatever veteran minimum. Like,
and let's be real here too. Donovan Smith is not some world beater, right? Like he's not necessarily great either. Like in that Super Bowl against the 49ers, he struggled. That was part of the reason why they were struggling in that game in the first half before the offense kind of opened up a little bit in the second half. So it's not exactly like you bring in Donovan Smith and all of a sudden, boom, voila, the issue's fixed. He just brings a level of competency and, to me, depth that they desperately need too.
Yeah, and you said it, because right now they're playing without a net. If something happens to Wanya Morris, Patrick Mahomes, the offense, Andy Reid, they're covering up for a lot of the warts that Wanya Morris has and making it almost seem in some games like he's average, but he's not. He's below average, but they're a good enough team that they're able to overcome that. When they get to the playoffs, they're going to be facing one of two types of teams. They're either going to be facing a team with a lights out defense, like the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? Or maybe even the Chargers. The Chargers have a pretty good defense that, is limited on offense. Or like in a game like they played today, or they're going to be going up against a team like the Baltimore Ravens, maybe even the Cincinnati Bengals, who don't have a good defense, but can really score, can really move the offense. If they make it to the Super Bowl, they could be going up against a team like the 49ers. They could be going up against a team like the Detroit Lions. Detroit doesn't have a great defense, but boy, can they score. Do you want to see the Chiefs in a track meet with this offensive line? Like, no way, man. So, I tweeted this out this week, I think. And I just asked the question. I wasn't necessarily suggesting it, but I asked the question, is Joe Thuney the best tackle on the Chiefs right now? And if so, should he be playing the position? And everybody not everybody. Some people understood what I was getting at, but some people lost their minds and they were like, you can't break up this interior. They're so good. And I'm like, yeah, I get that. But like, listen, if something happens to Wanya Morris again, Joe Thuney needs to be playing left tackle, because it doesn't matter if we break up the interior of the offensive line. If Patrick Mahomes is on the sideline because he gets hurt, he got hit 9 times in this game, sacked 4. He's got a bad ankle. We can't lose 15. 3-peat's over. So, like, I would rather be less good in the interior offensive line and put a guard in there, which is a lot easier to cover for, if it means, and I understand the idea of like you're taking an all-pro level guard and moving him to a position that's not his position, but he's done it before. And I think it has to be on the table. I think Donovan Smith coming in, and if something happens to Wanya or Donovan, moving Joe Thuney out. You can't have Kingsley Suamataia in there playing right now.
Yeah, to be fair, the last time we saw Joe Thuney play left tackle was in 2021 against like that first time that they faced the Bengals with Joe Burrow. And, that was 3 or 4 years ago. I don't know about you, but I'm not the same guy I was in 2021. I wish I was. The kids, man, they do it to you. They wear you down. Yeah. So yeah. I'm not sure what they would like to see from Joe Thuney out at left tackle. And, like you said, you are weakening 2 spots at that point. You're taking all pro, you weaken that spot, and then you're also, weakening left tackle. So as long as Wanya Morris can stay upright, I feel good enough that this offense can function. But I certainly would like the extra level of security. And, I saw some Juwan Taylor slander. He did have an illegal formation penalty, and he did kind of get beat here. But Juwan Taylor is not the obstacle to this team getting a 3-peat. He does a nice enough job most of the time that you feel confident about him holding up and being a satisfactory level right tackle. That's probably not what you paid for, but you go to the free agent market, you overpay. That's how it goes. But they cannot overcome the left tackle play being as poor as it was today. And you give a nod to the Broncos too. I personally think that their edge rushers were kind of the perfect remedy for the Chiefs pass blockers. They're small, twitchy. You got Jonathan Cooper. They just traded Baron Browning. They've got a lot of guys, Bonito, who are all just kind of that small, bendy edge rusher. I think that was probably a big factor in this too, is that they had a specific game plan to beat the Chiefs. They were one of the first teams, Vance Joseph was, to use this kind of where the interior defensive linemen stunt around to keep Patrick Mahomes in the pocket, but then you have two spies, or at least one spy, sitting there in the intermediate part of the field waiting for Mahomes to scramble. So they've kind of perfected this. And, I thought we saw that neutralized quite a bit too. So Vance Joseph has done a nice job. I think what the Chiefs scored 2 touchdowns in this game, 1 touchdown in this game. They scored 1 touchdown, just the Travis Kelce one. They flashed the stat several times that the Chiefs have basically only scored 1 touchdown in the last 11 trips to the red zone against Vance Joseph's Broncos defense. So they've got their number a little bit.
Yeah. It's frustrating. We'll see what Brett Veach in the front office does, if anything. This may be a team that says, hey, we trust our coaching staff. We invested 2 high picks in tackles. We believe in their athletic profile. Coach them up. And hopefully they'll be, better than they are now come the end of the season. The one thing I do like about Wanya Morris playing is I think he's got, I know he has potential, and these reps are valuable for him. It's whether or not you believe he can be better than he is right now. I think he can. He's basically a rookie, right? He played a little bit last year, but he's basically a rookie. And so you're hopefully at least developing your backup left tackle who can be a solid backup left tackle for you in the future by playing Wanya this year. But my main worry is I don't mind losing a game to develop some players. It's Mahomes' health. Like, that's what I'm concerned about when I say, like, maybe we should Joe Tooney. Like, it's not about losing games. It's not about being perfect. It's just you can't have 15 hobbled worse than he is right now, or it could be trouble for this team. But look, reinforcements are on the way. Charles Omenihu should be coming back soon. Hopefully Isaiah Pacheco's coming back. At some point, they may even get Hollywood Brown back, but that's a ways down the line. So, the Chiefs are going to be adding some bodies, which are going to be really important to helping them perform at a little bit of a higher level. Let's talk about the defense a little bit. We spent a lot of time on the offense so far. By the way, you're listening to the Arrowhead Addict podcast. Patrick Allen, Price Carter here with you, celebrating a hilarious Chiefs victory as KC remains undefeated. But we're going to talk about the things that went wrong in this game, because it's a game the Chiefs should have lost and managed to squeak it out with a special teams play. On the defensive side of the ball, this was a little surprising for me. The defense, look, they gave up 14 points, so it's hard to get too down on them. However, Bo Nix was really efficient, 22 of 30 for 215 yards, average 7.2, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. And Cortland Sutton, like, this is a Broncos offense that does not have a lot. Outside of Cortland Sutton, there's not really anybody that you're terribly scared of. And this was a rough game for Trent McDuffie. I think he struggled a little bit with the size and physicality of Cortland Sutton, and he got beat on a number of occasions. What did you see out there on the defensive side of the ball?
Yeah, I thought pretty frustrating first half, right? It was kind of a miracle that they didn't end up giving points there at the end of the half, which ended up being huge the way this game ended. The first couple of drives were a little bit frustrating, and it was kind of all the familiar faces when it came to how the Chiefs were getting the ball moved on them. A lot of tight end action. You got guys like Adam Troutman catching big passes, and then kind of some scary hours. Just Trent McDuffie was not playing his best game, especially whenever you're considering he's getting burnt on the outside on a double move by Cortland Sutton, who is in no way a burner. That's something you'd expect from like Marvin Mims or someone else who's on that offense, not him. And then some miscommunication between Drew Tranquill and Nick Bolton leads to a wide open touchdown in the end zone. And you're thinking, okay, this is a rookie Bo Nix, the 5th or 6th quarterback taken in that first round, and he's carving us up. But credit to Steve Spagnuolo and the defense for their halftime adjustments are just always so good. I am not going to hold them super responsible. They're allowed to make a stop, but giving a team the ball at the 40-yard line and asking basically for them to not give up a field goal is a really tough challenge, especially whenever you factor in they're the underdogs. They're here in Arrowhead trying to steal a game from an undefeated team. They had all 4 downs to work with, the Broncos did. And they, at least they didn't give up a touchdown. They could have made it better, but this was a pretty gritty performance from the defense. I thought the big thing that was notable here is just the pass rush. right? Like they did not get much home on Bo Nix without bringing extra players. I didn't see a ton of Joshua Uche out there. Again, I don't have the snap counts yet, so I'll take a look at that. But to me, this felt like the type of game that you bring him in for, and I didn't see much out of him today. Just not even out on the field very much. So it'll be interesting to see what the snap counts are and how that went. I thought it was interesting. We've seen more and more Jaden Hicks in the secondary. I'm not sure who's losing their snaps there. We'll have to take a look again at the snap counts. It might be Roland Wallace, who's, Hicks is starting to eat up some of those snaps, but I think that's a good thing just as a tackler in general. Just really, really lays the thud as a tackler. But yeah, it's one of those that at the end of the day, you look up and like they've only given up, 17 or 14 points. It feels way worse than that. They really locked it down in the second half, but they kind of got carved up in the first.
Yeah, and it was a weird game for Chris Jones, who, I will see what the pressures were when those come in, but I think he had one quarterback hit, 2 tackles in this game. So not much from him. Karlaftis, who's been tremendous this year, I don't remember one single thing he did. He had 1 tackle in this game. That was it. So it just got locked up. So I think that's part of it. Is I don't know a lot about Denver's offensive line, but they did a tremendous job in this one, just kind of against the Chiefs base set. They did need to blitz. And ultimately, the Chiefs did get 2 sacks. They hit Nix 5 times. And at the end of the day, as you pointed out, like we're sitting here and it felt really bad, right? Like that last drive of the game, they really hamstrung the defense, because with them having the ball at the 40, I don't think Spags could be as aggressive early in that drive as he wanted to be, because he needed to protect, he didn't want to give up a big play. And here you go. They go on a 5-minute drive, pick up 43 yards. But like we're sitting here at the end of this, feeling like it was a down day for the defense. They gave up 260 total yards in this game. Like, what more can you ask from them?
Yeah, I know we talked a lot about the Christmas Day game last year against the Broncos or against the Raiders. This was a much different game because there wasn't a bunch of defensive scores, but this did kind of feel like a game that a lot of people will be coming on here and blaming the defense if it's a loss. But really, it came down to the Chiefs scoring 1 touchdown on offense. That was the deciding factor. And I thought we got some kind of passive play calling from Andy Reid. I know that there's some statistical analysis out there that says that Andy Reid does hold stuff back as far as the amount of movement and motion that happens with his play calling. Mitchell Schwartz was talking about this on his Twitter feed. If you want to go back and look, like he was talking about like, hey, these are all their bread and butter plays, like going to this, this is a short week. This is classic, like Andy Reid. And they scrape by with the win. So you're just happy for it. But yeah, to me, if we're making a blame pie on a figurative Chiefs loss, the special teams would have had to take some of it. I tend to think that they were trying to be strategic with that kick, that they were trying to pin them down, and it just didn't go well. Just kick it out of the back of the end zone, right? Like this dynamic kickoff, which it's been anything but that, but just kick it out of the end zone and remove all doubt instead of, trying to pin them down. And then the offense would have had to take the biggest slice of that blame pie because they scored 1 touchdown. They, weren't able to convert on some open passes with Kelsey, and anybody not named Travis Kelce or Kareem Hunt wasn't really able to win consistently as a pass catcher.
Yeah. Frustrating game. You're still working in DeAndre Hopkins, who had a fine day, 4 receptions for 56 yards. He was only targeted 5 times. Again, I think it's important to remember Patrick Surtain is unbelievable. Like he is lockdown. He's a big reason why, just like McDuffie is for the Chiefs, a big reason why this defense works the way it does, and they're able to do some of the things that they're able to do. So, the fact that he still came in and got 4 for 56, boy, that makes me feel really good going into Buffalo next week. Like he went up against that guy, still had a good day, still made an impact. And I think, you're gonna see the Chiefs next week. You think they may have been just trying to rest Kareem Hunt a little bit because he might get 40 carries next week against Buffalo Bills. Did you see what Jonathan Taylor did to them today?
I've not, with it being a noon kickoff and having the kids awake, son doesn't really take naps anymore. I was kind of just locked in on our game, and that was about it.
Yeah, he went 21 for 114 against them. So, you can run. He averaged 5.4 yards per carry. Frankly, I don't know why he didn't get more carries.
I know Verderam's been really big on the fact that like the Bills, they just play dime and that the Chiefs are just going to run the ball down their throat. So, good opportunity there for sure. And I guess again, you pull this out of the arms of defeat here, and you've got a somewhat rested Kareem Hunt going into that game.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a huge game. I think the Chiefs are going to run a lot, and the Colts might have won that game. Joe Flacco, I think, threw 3 interceptions in that game. So, Allen threw 2.
Well, hopefully Anthony Richardson is on the bench learning from those interceptions. He's like, okay, so this is what I don't do. Don't get me wrong. Anthony Richardson was not playing well, but I'm not sure what he's supposed to be learning right now.
Yeah, what's the point? You think you're going to go to the Super Bowl with Joe Flacco? Like, I don't get it. They should have traded Joe Flacco to a team that needed a quarterback, at the trade deadline, and just ran. Yeah, whatever. This isn't a Colts podcast. All right, we've beaten this one to death. Let's give out some arrowheads, some hardware. If you're new here, we have a segment called Earning Their Arrowheads, where we award arrowheads to some Chiefs players that we think were integral and played well for the Chiefs in this one. What do you got, Price? Who's getting some arrowheads from you?
Boy, this is a tough one because you felt like it was almost a loss. I guess I'm gonna have to give one to Kareem Hunt for particularly the work he did as a receiver. Really was impactful in this game, kept the sticks moving, and then I'll take the obvious one, Leo Chanel for blocking the kick, pulling this game out. This was massive, right? You go into, like, I was already doing the math in my head of like, okay, they're about to go into Buffalo against a really good team here. And if they lose to Buffalo, they're tied effectively in the standings for the number 1 seed. This gives them a larger margin for error. I believe this is Leo Chanel's second blocked kick because he also blocked the kick in the Super Bowl. Man is clutch. So Leo Chanel, Kareem Hunt, you have my arrowheads.
Nice. I'm going to give one to Najee Johnson. He had 10 tackles in this game, a sack, a quarterback hit. Nice work from him stepping up into that second quarterback position. What's funny? Do you know how many passes defended the Chiefs had in this game?
No, not off the top of my head.
0. They were not credited for a single defended pass in this game. Maybe that's why it felt so bad.
It just kind of felt like that, man. It just felt like, the kind of the classic, like, someone drops a pass, the ball bounces off someone's feet. It just felt like everything was super. It honestly reminded me a lot of what the Bucs did on offense last week, where there was just a lot of high probability throws made in and around the line of scrimmage, and then a couple of shots down the field, like the one to Sutton. And that was really all they need. My fantasy team was really disappointed. They really leaned into Audric Estime in this game instead of Javonte Williams. So I thought maybe there was something they saw on tape there that they thought Estime gave them the best chance. But yeah, it was a kind of a brutally efficient offense for the Broncos, but 14 points.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to give an arrowhead to Travis Kelce. He was great in this one. Targeted 12 times, eight catches for 64 yards, a touchdown. Should have had 2 touchdowns. Patrick missed him. And let's see here. By the way, Justin Ross. Where the hell did Justin Ross come from? They're in the red zone and Patrick's. And that was just like, that was another weird thing that happened in this game.
Just the screen, the halfback screen in the red zone, and then the corner fade to Ross. Like, what are we doing? Come on. Let's call the good plays handy, but it's okay.
They managed to gut it out. Not a ton of standout stars in this one. I'll go ahead and give one to Harrison Butker, 3 for 3 on his field goals, 1 for 1 on his extra point. Scored, 10 of the Chiefs' 16 points there. He was big, didn't slip up or anything. And I'll give one to Dave Toub. Like, Dave Toub, he takes a lot of heat. Probably should be taking heat if it was his decision to do what they did on that last kickoff. But at the same time, made good at the end. He had a play in his back pocket to block a kick, and it literally won the Chiefs a game. Special teams, so often overlooked, so often the difference in a tight game. The Chiefs get it done. They move to 9-0. Let's look ahead now, just really quickly, about what they've got left, because we're kind of as often as said, and I think Price, you mentioned it already in the show, the season starts when you get to Thanksgiving. Win as many games as you can before Thanksgiving and then see what happens. Well, the Chiefs won them all so far. They go 2 road games coming up. On the road to Buffalo and a big one. On the road to Carolina. And then after that, they're at Arrowhead for the Raiders and the Chargers. They go to Cleveland, which is a mess right now. And then they have a tough stretch at the end. Houston, at Pittsburgh, at Denver, as we saw in this one. That game is going to be no cakewalk. But if the Chiefs beat the Buffalo Bills, I think the only way that there are starters playing in that game against the Denver Broncos is if they're 16-0 at that point, because the number 1 seed will be locked up.
Yeah. I mean, that's probably the dream scenario that you want, right? And if their chances of getting the 1 seed go up dramatic, and they're already very high. Last time I checked, they were around 76% to get it. If they go out and beat the Bills, then that's where you can really start that conversation. I think all of us, like, if we were going to hop on here and talk about a loss, we probably would have said, like, hey, like, they were going to lose at some point. You want the undefeated season to still be a factor, but if it meant, I'm a big let's get the 3-peat over the undefeated season. Would it be cool to do both? Sure. Likely not at all. So I think that's true. And, you look at some of these games, they swing, right? Like, for instance, the Panthers, that looked like the most, we're sitting here talking like, hey, is the spread in that game going to be 21? Are they just going to be getting 21 points? This is a college football spread, but they're playing a little bit better. Chuba Hubbard, they've won their last 2 games with Bryce Young back at the helm. I don't expect them to beat the Chiefs, but that game got a little bit saltier. You look at, the Chargers, they seem to be more real than not. Cleveland Browns, Winston back starting, that's a little bit more challenging than it would have been if it was Deshaun Watson. That team felt like it was a dead man walking. And then, the Steelers just beat Jaden Daniels and the Commanders. That's a very real operation there, and that's going to be on a super short week. So you never know, right? You want to take every win you can, especially when it comes to, blocking a field goal. That would help to get a win.
Yeah, teams they come in with a reputation, but they're not necessarily who they've been for the most of the season. The Denver Broncos in week 18, at that point, Bo Nix is a veteran, right? Like, he's played 17 NFL games, and he's been getting better. I think the Broncos found their quarterback. Like, he's generally pretty poised, makes good reads. We'll see how it all shakes out in the end. I'm not saying he's, the next Joe Montana, but I think that he's going to be around for a few years and he's going to have a chance to work out in the NFL. So that's going to be really interesting. Probably not the first time the Chiefs do battle with him. And of course, you've got Herbert over there. The Raiders, that's a whole different story. They may never figure it out. All right, everybody, we are going to get out of here. Really appreciate you joining us today for a hilarious Chiefs victory over the day. But listen, they don't all end like this. So enjoy it. Troll your friends who are Broncos fans. Don't be obnoxious to strangers, but troll your friends who are Broncos fans. Don't let them hear the end of it. Make them block your number, like whatever you need to do. Enjoy this one. It's going to be a lot of fun for this week. And then big game next week, Sunday afternoon on the road against the Bills. We'll be here covering it for you. Shout out to everybody who helped out today. Adam Best on the pregame show, Matt Connor, Price did the halftime, producer Richard for making the whole thing work. And of course, all of our members, if you're interested in becoming a member of the Arrowhead Addict community, watching game day with us in the private Discord and chopping it up, all the other special events we have, Fantasy Football League, check out the link in the description. If you're new here, leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, ask a question, and I'll answer it on the OG Hour on Thursday. I think that's all the announcements I've got for the day. And then, wait. I was supposed to do producer Richard. Do I need to do the do I need to do the read for Underdog? Oh, you're the man. I was too excited and I just forgot all about it. All right, everybody, we're going to get out of here then. Thank you so much for your support. We'll see you on Monday. But until then, as always, go Chiefs.